beginning of the end for the Drew Brees, Sean Payton era?
No, I don't think so. I think they can win a Super Bowl this year. In fact, I think their odds have changed very little. I think Bridgewater can keep them afloat. You just go 500, get hot at the end of the season. The way Aaron Rodgers needed to reel off like 8 straight wins a couple years ago to make the playoffs, Brees ain't going to even have to do that if Bridgewater can just tread water, and I think he can. I want to say one other thing about the Saints, by the way, because I just don't get to say this, and I always think it. I think Taysom Hill is my favorite player. I know it's not true, but somehow when I watch him, I go, he's got to be the best player in the league. Like, he can do everything and does it hard, too. They have an excellent and deep roster, the Saints, and including a defense that was good against the run last year, at least, where other dynamic offenses weren't. A premium running back, a premium wideout, a premium coach. And, of course, Drew Brees is what makes them then, in the eyes of some, Super Bowl favorites. But how about this one? Drew Brees gets a nice little rest at his age for 6 or 8 weeks. Maybe gets just enough games, by the end of the season. Now he's back in sync, but doesn't take the beating. So that last year when he kind of faded at the end, he wasn't that great in the playoffs late, right? He looked like, whoa, that doesn't look like Drew Brees. Maybe he has a little more tread on the tires now. Like, you don't know the way this stuff is going to work out. But to say that this injury is it for the Saints, in my view, are still very live to win the Super Bowl this year, provided it's not more than 6 or 8 weeks that Brees is out.
I think this is the beginning of the end because I view this as potentially Drew Brees last year in the National Football League. I think that Drew Brees, obviously, he's been on this show before. I've had the pleasure of interviewing him on a few occasions, and he wasn't sure if he was going to come back this year initially. I think he has a love for the game and a passion to win, to close it out on top. And I believe that if the New Orleans Saints were to luck up and Drew Brees goes out there, comes back, produces, and they find themselves winning a Super Bowl championship, I think Drew Brees calls it a career. That's why I'm saying I believe it's the beginning of the end, because I think that if he comes back, they're going to be in position to capture an NFC championship and go to the Super Bowl and potentially win it. That's what I'm viewing it as. Since Sean Payton has been there in 2006 and Drew Brees has been there as well, 207 games they've played with one another. The record is 126-81. That's their record with one another as a tandem. I think they've done a lot of things, and even though everybody's been talking about Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma, my attitude is New Orleans competes. If they get to a Super Bowl and they win it, Drew Brees walks away from the game, and Sean Payton departs from New Orleans and goes to Dallas. That's my personal belief of what I think is going to happen. That's why I believe this is the beginning of the end.
Yeah, listen, I agree that this is the beginning of the end. Remember, all 3 quarterbacks for the New Orleans Saints their contracts run out this year. So they're all going to be free agents. And I think moving forward, Drew Brees is going to be on a year-to-year deal. New Orleans Saints really love Taysom Hill. He's similar to a lot of these quarterbacks that are coming into the league right now. He's a dynamic athlete. Sean Payton is molding him into, this passing quarterback along the lines of, you see the Kyler Murrays and all the Lamar Jackson. Like, he's athletic. He's as athletic as those type of guys who are coming into the league. He's kind of like the new style of quarterback that's coming into the National Football League.
But gives you a sense that when there's a collision, the other guy's the guy feeling.
Yeah, listen, this dude, he packs a punch.
Yep.
And listen, by no means is this the end of the New Orleans Saints this year, because I think the NFC South division is weaker than a lot of people thought it would be. Considering with the injuries and the teams in that division, I think New Orleans, whether it be with Taysom Hill or Teddy Bridgewater, they still can win that division and make some noise in the postseason. But just projecting long term with the New Orleans Saints, I think we're starting to see the end of both. What I would say at least. Drew Brees, as far as being the starting quarterback of the New Orleans Saints.
Maybe Bridgewater and Taysom Hill, some wildcat action. I'll say this, that if you mean by the beginning of the end, like Drew Brees has played a lot more football. There's a lot more behind him than ahead of him, of course. And I'm not claiming just because Tom Brady's doing it, Drew Brees can do it. Tom Brady's better and greater than Drew Brees. But Brees is just about as good as it's ever gotten, right? And he's still looking good when he's out there on the field, and he has an enormous home field advantage where he always balls out. He has a great team around him. Maybe it's his last season, win, lose, or draw, right? But maybe it's not. And I don't think this injury represents that moment. Like if they're saying 6 weeks, even if it's a little, even if it's 8 weeks, if he gets back on the field with a couple games to go before these playoffs, I'm telling you right now they could do it this year. And if not, they could at least make a run. And he may feel like
the tough games they have: Seahawks, Cowboys. I'm looking out. What else? That's really the only.
But those are tough games for the Seahawks and the Cowboys
the Bears.
too.
I mean, then they got the Bucks, the Jags, Cards, Falcons. Bucks.
Listen,
The Saints are tough for everyone too. But my point is, how do we know how he's going to feel at the end of this year? He may feel like there's unfinished business because he missed some games this year, and he's back next year.
But my whole point is all three quarterbacks are not under contract after this year. We don't know how this whole situation is going to play out for the New Orleans Saints. Again, they probably go year to year because Sean Payton really loves Taysom Hill, and he's going to want him at his quarterback.
So you're saying that could affect Drew Brees staying with the team? Is that what you mean by that?
I think, like I said, it's going to be year to year. Like Sean Payton really loves Taysom Hill.
One of the beautiful pictures, one of the beautiful videos that I saw last season was when Drew Brees, they showed a video of Drew Brees going home to his family, and he had his boys. He's got like 3 or 4 kids, and they're running around a table, and he's literally throwing the football to each of them and having a beautiful time. And you could just see that he's got a wonderful family, wonderful kids who obviously love their daddy, a wonderful wife as well. And you know, an injury like this is no big deal. It's just the thumb and what have you. But the bottom line is that it's a reminder of your own football mortality. Again, I will remind y'all, as recently as a year ago and the year before that, Drew Brees was contemplating walking away from the game of football, but there was unfinished business. We've got a Super Bowl championship contender squad. We're going for it. I think what he's playing for is another crack at the Super Bowl. If he gets it, he's accomplished his goal and he can walk away. I think the only reason he's sticking around now is to capture the chip. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.